Welcome back to the channel, the place where real truckers share the stories they can't tell anywhere else. Out here on the highways, past the glow of the last gas station, night doesn't just get darker, it gets alive. If you're listening, alone, turn down the lights and make sure your doors are locked, because the road has a way of remembering who pays attention. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another true trucker nightmare. And when the story ends, tell me in the comments what you think really happened out there. Your theories keep this channel alive. And the shadows listening. Driving long enough to forget what my first dispatcher's voice sounded like. But I remember that night on 666 like it's tattooed under my eyelids.
I've been out here long enough that states blur together. You drive enough nights and lines on the map stop meaning what they do to everyone else. You don't think California into Arizona. You think climb, drop, scale house, dead zone, the stretch with the good coffee, the one where the wind shoves at your trailer like it holds a grudge. That night, I was crossing into Arizona at dusk with a reefer full of frozen chicken behind me. Name's Ray, 06 Kenworth W900, old school nose, 18 speed, no fancy LED light show, just a worn-out work truck that still pulled true. Dispatch had me running a tight clock. Barstow Terminal to a grocery DC outside Flagstaff by 8 a.m. summer run. Late monsoon season. Heat still lying low on the asphalt. Clouds piling up like dark mountains in the east. I'd fueled up in Needles, grabbed a burnt cup of coffee, and rolled back onto I-40 just as the sun started getting swallowed by a band of dirty purple clouds. CB was quiet. Too quiet. You get a feel for the rhythm of chatter out here, jokes, warnings about bears at the 132. Some guy swearing his Peterbilt could outrun a DOT ghost if he really let her breathe. That night, Channel 19 was mostly dead. Static, a far-off murmur. Then nothing. I crossed the state line right at that in-between light where everything loses its color but hasn't gone full dark yet. The signs turned from California reflectors to Arizona's faded, bullet-kissed steel. The land flattened, stretched out, scrub and rock as far as I could see. Headlights washed the world in a tired yellow cone. That's when I saw him. Little hump on the right shoulder, just past a mile marker. At first I thought it was a shredded tire, maybe a deer curled up wrong. As I rolled closer, the hump shifted, straightened. It was a man. He was down on all fours at first, his face so close to the asphalt it looked like he was smelling it, not looking for something. Nose practically touching the lane, like the road itself had a scent he was reading. I eased off the throttle just a hair. Instinct. Lone guy on the shoulder, no car, no hazards, no flares. That's a bad sign even before you add in the weird posture. My headlights swept across him. He lifted his head. I've seen animals in the beams 1,000 times. Coyotes, stray dogs, once a mountain lion. Their eyes flash yellow or green, that quick animal shine. His eyes reflected back bright silver. No color. No pupil. Two perfectly round, mercury-bright discs. Like somebody had cut circles out of a mirror and pressed them into his skull. For a half second, I thought maybe they were goggles or glasses. Then he blinked. The silver didn't go away. It just rippled like light on metal. His irises shook. Not a twitch, not a tremor. They spun, stuttered, like broken compasses trying to find north and failing, over and over. Little micro-jerks in every direction. It made me nauseous just looking at it. His mouth moved. You ever hear a clutch grind when you miss a shift? That metallic crunch that makes your teeth hurt? That's what it sounded like, except it wasn't outside. It was wrong. Close. Like someone was dragging a steel chain through my dashboard. He was mouthing something, but it wasn't words. No syllables. Just shapes. Jaw opening. Tongue pressing like he'd forgotten how to speak and was trying to remember the idea of it. The hair on my arms went rigid. I passed him in 2 seconds. My brain did what every driver's brain does with something weird. Tried to file it under normal. Guy with weird contacts. Tattoo artist with chrome eyes. High as a kite. Move on, Ray. Then my radio spat. Not the usual soft hiss. This was sudden, violent static, like somebody had slammed a live wire against the antenna. White noise filled the cab, loud enough to drown the engine rumble for a heartbeat. The whole truck shuddered. Not from wind, not from a pothole. It vibrated under my hands in a staccato pulse. A deep thump that didn't match my RPMs, didn't match the road. It felt like I was riding inside somebody else's heartbeat. The CB squeal cut, leaving a little echo ringing in my left ear. I swallowed, fingers tightening on the wheel. "Damn power surge," I muttered. "Old wiring." As I said it, cold air brushed the back of my neck. Not a draft from the vent. Not the AC kicking up. This was a deliberate breath. A single exhale. You spend enough nights alone in a sealed cab. You know what air moves on its own and what doesn't. Came from directly behind my left ear. Like someone was leaning over the back of my seat, mouth an inch from my skin. I locked my jaw and stared straight ahead. Didn't turn. Didn't check the sleeper. My brain started building excuses faster than I could knock them down. Pressure change. Window seal. You're tired. I reached down, slow, like my hand wasn't attached to me, and thumbed the door locks. The chunky, mechanical clack sounded too small in the cab. Didn't matter. The smell hit next. Trucks smell like a lot of things. Old coffee, stale sweat, upholstery cleaner, sometimes whatever you're hauling if it's strong enough. My cab usually smells like a mix of cheap cologne and French fries I tell myself I'll stop eating. That night, it turned into a fuel island. Raw diesel flooded the air. Not faint, heavy. Thick enough I could almost feel it coating the inside of my nose. If you've ever been in a big truck stop when someone overflows a tank and the spill dries in the heat, you know that stinging, oily tang. It was that turned up to 10. I glanced at my gauges. Fuel pressure normal. No warning lights. No loss in power. I checked my driver's side mirror, expecting to see a ribbon of liquid trailing under my tank. The road behind me was dry. I cracked my window an inch, half expecting cool desert air. Instead, the smell got worse. Stronger outside than in. It was like the highway itself had been soaked in the stuff. I ran the mental checklist. Fuel line leak, bad cap, prank at the pump. None of it fit. Breaker 19, I said, voice sounding too small in my own ears. Any westbound notice a spill near the line? Smelling a lot of diesel up here. Static answered. Then, under the hiss, a sound crawled in. Low, grinding, metallic, like gears chewing on rocks. Ist. I leaned closer to the mic. Say again. The noise sharpened. Resolved. Stop. It was one word. But it didn't sound like language coming from a human throat. It sounded like parts. Like pistons and valves and metal forced into shape. My scalp prickled. I looked at my clock. I crossed the line maybe 2 minutes earlier. The GPS ticked off my progress. Little digital numbers counting down the miles to my next exit. I watched one go by. Then another. Then I noticed the smell hadn't faded at all. Most scents when you're driving move with you. You pass the dead skunk, the refinery, the burning field. The odor peaks, then falls away. This diesel smell stuck. Same intensity, minute after minute. I drove 9 miles like that. Engine purring fine, gauges happy, world outside my windshield flattening into night. Diesel in my lungs so heavy I kept wanting to cough it out. Every few minutes, the radio would wake up. Stop! It hissed. Sometimes the words stretched, metal dragging over metal. Sometimes it clipped short like a relay switch flipping. Once, it came through layered, 3 or 4 tones stacked, all saying the same thing in slightly different pitches. Stop! Each time, that cold breath grazed the back of my neck. I tried everything. Switched the CB off. The smell didn't change. The air didn't warm. A minute later, the speaker crackled back on by itself. Green power light flickering like an eye. Stop! I turned up the music, old rock station fading in and out of range. The song warped as it passed through the word, like the syllable was heavier than the rest of the sound, dragging it down. The road stayed empty. No oncoming traffic. No taillights ahead. Just my 2 beams carving out a tunnel of pale gray through the dark. On the 19th mile, the world shifted. I didn't see anything at first. I felt it. The steering went light like someone had taken half the weight off my front axle. The familiar rumble under my feet faded until it was more suggestion than sensation. My eyes flicked to the mirrors. That's when I saw the glow. Not behind me, under me. A faint, sickly yellow light seeped out from under the trailer. The way fuel looks when it catches late sun in a parking lot puddle. It wasn't bright enough to be a fire. It was reflective, like I was riding over a pool of liquid light, and my rig was the only thing keeping it from breaking the surface. I eased off the throttle. That heartbeat vibration came back, shaking the frame in a deep, slow rhythm. The smell of diesel hit a new level. My eyes watered. For a moment, I was sure if I looked down, I'd see flames licking at my fuel tanks. Some part of me wanted to pull the brake, jump, roll, anything to get away from the smell, the shaking, the voice. The CB clicked, loud in the quiet. "Ray," said my name. Same metallic grind, but the syllable was mine. Personalized. The way dispatch says it when they're too tired to be polite. I hadn't given my name out that night. Not on the radio. Not to anyone at the fuel stop. I hadn't even signed a logbook. My hands locked on the wheel. "Ray, stop." The road ahead of me bent, just a fraction. Not the asphalt, my vision. The horizon line tilted like a camera slowly rolling. For a second, it looked like the world wanted me to veer right, to let gravity finish the job. There was a blue sign coming up on the shoulder. I squinted through the warping air. It was mostly peeled and faded, but I could still make out the ghost of words. Last services, 19 miles. Someone had spray painted over the bottom half, but the outline of an old gas pump was still there. The picture was charred, blackened, like someone had held real fire up to it. I knew that place, in a vague way, old truck stop that never reopened. Years back, I'd heard bits. Tanker accident, pump explosion, driver killed quick, maybe a few more in the blast radius. Stories get fuzzy as they pass from mouth to mouth. It was 19 miles from the state line. The same distance the smell had followed me. The heartbeat in the frame staggered, then hit harder. The silver glow under my trailer flared once, bright enough that my dash lights dimmed for a heartbeat. "Ray, stop." The voice insisted. It didn't sound angry. That was the worst part. It sounded desperate, like a warning given too late, over and over, stuck in a loop. I saw something then, just for a blink, in the right-hand mirror. A shape running alongside my trailer, paced perfect with my speed. Hunched, head bent low, like it was sniffing every inch of rubber and metal. Not on the shoulder. In the darkness beyond it, where the desert just drops into nothing. Silver eyes flashed once as my lights caught the edge of its face. That broke something in me. I shoved the pedal down. Engine roared. Turbo whined. The glow under me shivered, thinned, stretched like I was dragging it behind me instead of riding over it. The smell clung tighter. Then, just as I hit 70, the air in the cab snapped, popped like an overinflated balloon. The cold at my neck vanished. The heartbeat vibration dissolved into normal road shake. In one breath, the smell of diesel dropped from suffocating to faint. A memory in my nose instead of a presence. The CB went dead. Not off, just quiet like any other night. I drove another 10 miles before I believed the change was real. When I finally pulled into a lit truck stop on the outskirts of a little nowhere town, the smell of actual fuel, honest spills, wet concrete, overheated brakes, almost made me dizzy with relief. Normal, mundane, human. Later, over bad coffee and a microwaved burrito, I asked the graveyard cashier about that closed-down stop back toward the line. He didn't blink, just sighed. "Fuel fire," he said. "Big one. Tanker ruptured. Lit the whole place up. Killed the driver and 2 guys at the pumps. They say it burned so hot it melted parts of the concrete. Company never rebuilt. Some folks say you can still smell it when the wind's wrong." "What about people seeing things?" I asked. He gave me the kind of look you give when you're deciding if someone's messing with you. "On that stretch," he said, "drivers see all kinds of things. Lights, shadows. Guy I know swears there's someone walking the shoulder, crawling under rigs while they roll." He shrugged. "I don't drive nights. Don't need the money that bad." Back in the cab, I sat with the engine off, just listening. To the tick of cooling metal. To the faint hum of the reefer. To the silence on the radio. If you go through my truck right now, you won't find proof. Gauges are clean. Fuel system's fine. No leaks. CB checks out. No recordings, no saved transmissions. But every time I cross a state line now, I catch myself glancing at the shoulder for a hunched shape smelling the asphalt. Every time the faint smell of diesel sneaks into the cab when it shouldn't, my hand goes to the door locks, even when they're already down. And every time I think about pulling into some lonely, half-lit station in the middle of nowhere, I hear that grinding voice in the back of my skull, metal forced into one ragged word. Stop! I didn't that night. Maybe that's why I'm still here to tell it. Or maybe I just outran something that hasn't quite decided to give up yet. Because on long, empty runs, when the sky goes black and the road turns into one endless gray river, there are minutes, quiet, unremarkable minutes, where the steering goes a little too light and the engine's hum slips one beat off from what it should be. And in those minutes, if I lean close enough to the speaker, past the static and the distant chatter, I swear I can hear him, still out there, still pacing the line, still trying to warn somebody too late. I don't scare easy on the road anymore. You see enough wrecks, enough drunks, enough kids playing chicken with 80,000 pounds of steel, and whatever's left of your fear gets ground down to a dull edge. You respect the road. You don't spook at shadows. Or at least, that's what I used to tell myself before that night near Shiprock. Name's Dale. Been running long haul since before GPS was something you trusted and not just something you argued with. I pull drive-in mostly, auto parts, packaged foods, whatever fits and pays. That run, I was eastbound on 64, coming off a delivery in Farmington and heading toward a cross-dock outside Albuquerque. Empty trailer behind a well-used Kenworth T680. It was early fall, one of those nights where the desert can't decide if it's done with summer. Heat still clinging to the sand, but the air going thin, dry, cold the second the sun is truly gone. Around midnight, the sky above Shiprock turns into a big, black bowl. All the stars pressed to the edges. That night was textbook for it. Moonless, windless, the kind of still where you feel like your truck is the only thing keeping the world moving. I'd fueled up earlier in the evening, grabbed a coffee from a machine that probably hadn't been cleaned since the Obama administration, and pointed the nose toward the dark. Dispatch had me on a relaxed schedule for once. Plenty of hours in the bank, no tight gate time. I figured I'd roll easy through the night, nap a few hours outside Albuquerque, then back in the saddle. The CB was mostly quiet. I had it on 19 out of habit, volume turned down low. Just in case, elk on the road, DOT rolling, debris in the lane. Every now and then, a voice would flicker in from some other highway where people still had something to say. Out where I was, though, it was me and static. Shiprock itself was a looming shadow off my right side, way out there in the dark. You don't see it so much as feel it. A jagged weight against the sky, blocking a chunk of stars. I remember glancing at the dash clock, 12:07 a.m. I just passed a roadside marker, no services for some ridiculous number of miles, when the CB crackled. Not the polite little hiss of someone keying up and backing off. This was a harsh burst, like someone had slapped the side of the speaker with a live wire. Breaker! A voice dragged through the static, stretched thin like an old tape. Breaker! Any unit. You got eyes on the overturned rig? I eased my hand onto the mic, thumb hovering over the button. Voice sounded strained. Male. Hard to place the age. Not panicked, but pushed. The way people sound when they've been calling for a while and hope's getting thin. I scanned the road ahead. Nothing but my headlights eating the miles. No flares, no red and blues, no reflection of hazard triangles. I picked up the mic. This is eastbound Kenworth near Shiprock. Negative on any overturned rigs. Roads empty, far as I can see. Static swallowed my words when I let off the button. A faint hiss, then nothing. I waited. Sometimes you get jokers. Sometimes you get guys 100 miles away and what they're seeing has nothing to do with what you're seeing. Sometimes you just get lonely voices. I nearly wrote it off as that when the CB spat again, softer this time. He's still inside, the voice said. Clearer now, like the signal had sharpened. Won't stop banging. The hair on my arms lifted. Something in the way he said it bothered me. No unit number, no mile marker, no plea for help. Just a statement, flat and tired. I pushed the mic button again. You want to give a location, driver? You talking on 40 or 64? You near Shiprock or south? Static. A high, whistling bleed came through, like wind across a bottle. Then, won't stop banging. Same words, same weary tone. I frowned and checked the CB's display. Channel 19, power solid, squelch normal. No indication of a bad connection. I flicked the volume dial up a notch, listening for chatter from anyone else. Nothing. Someone's screwing with the wrong radio, I muttered, setting the mic down. Outside the windshield, the world kept its perfect stillness. No oncoming headlights, no taillights ahead, just asphalt whitening under my beams and the black cutout of Shiprock off in the distance. I drove another mile, then two. You start to notice little things when you're on edge. The wheel vibration felt softer, not gone, just dulled, like I'd gone from rough concrete to perfectly smooth highway without a visual change. The usual distant whine of air against the mirrors was gone too. The cab was a cocoon of engine noise and nothing else. I cracked my window an inch, expecting that thin desert air. What came in was cold, not cool. Not night dropped 20 degrees. This was a sharp, metallic cold, the kind you get when someone opens a freezer door behind you. It hit my face and crawled down the side of my neck, leaving goosebumps under my collar. The air smelled like wet dust and something else. Ozone, maybe. That charged smell that hangs around after lightning. I rolled the window back up. Just tired, I told myself. You've been running too many nights. Brains filling in blanks. The CB agreed to disagree. It hissed once, then the same voice cut through, closer and quieter, like the speaker had been moved just inches from my ear. Breaker, he's still in there. Been banging and banging. The last word dragged, syllables fraying into a low hum. I couldn't stop the shiver that rolled through me. Look, I said into the mic, a little harsher than I meant to. You got an actual emergency, you call 911. You give a mile marker. You don't just. The radio popped, clean, like someone had yanked the power cord. The backlight on the display stayed on, but the tiny green indicator that always flickered when a signal ran through went dead. No static, no hum, just silence. I tapped the unit with 2 knuckles. Nothing. Fine, I muttered, setting the mic down. Fine. 3 miles. I remember that number because I watched the little tick marks on the side of the road. 1 reflective post. 2, 3. That's when I saw it. Up ahead, maybe half a mile out, my headlights slashed across twisted metal. An overturned semi lay on its side, 50 yards past the shoulder, half in the scrub. The trailer had buckled inward, accordion style, its roof peeled back in one section like a sardine can. The cab was a crumpled mess against the dirt, windshield gone, side windows shattered, door bent at an angle that made my stomach drop. I felt that weight in my chest you get when you see a wreck and in your bones that no one walked away from it. My foot was on the brake before I finished the thought. I eased onto the shoulder, hazards blinking, gravel crunching under my tires. The engine idled low, a nervous animal. I sat there for a second, fingers wrapped too tight around the wheel, listening. No sirens in the distance, no whump of rotors, no traffic coming up behind me to slow down for a look. Just my hazards ticking, my CB dead, and faintly under it all, something else. I killed the radio, turned the blower down till air barely whispered from the vents. There, from somewhere ahead and to the right on the edge of hearing, a dull, irregular thudding. Not engine noise, not metal pinging as it cooled. Banging, like someone hitting the inside of a door with the side of their fist, over and over, bone on steel. Caution and curiosity went to war in my head. On one hand, I'd heard the stories. You don't pull over at night for every strange thing you see. Not out here. On the other, if there was any chance someone was still alive in that wreck, I grabbed my flashlight. Stepping down from the cab, the cold hit harder. The air around my truck felt normal. But the closer I walked toward the overturned rig, the more that metallic chill pressed in. My breath ghosted faintly in front of me, even though the night wasn't nearly cold enough for that. The smell of burnt rubber drifted in, faint, old, not fresh skid, more like the ghost of tires long cooled. Under it, there was a hint of something chemical, sharp and stale. Coolant, maybe. Diesel evaporating. My boots crunched on gravel, then on sandy dirt. Up close, the wreck looked worse. The cab had taken a hard roll. The windshield frame was twisted, glass scattered in glinting patches like a spilled galaxy. Both side windows were gone, jagged teeth of safety glass left in the rubber. The driver's door hung partly open, its hinges strained, top corner bent outward. There was no driver inside. No one tangled in the seatbelt, no one slumped over the wheel, no one on the ground nearby. No blood on the glass, no dark stains on the sand. The interior of the cab, what I could see of it in my flashlight beam, was weirdly clean. The banging, though, that was real. It was coming from the far side of the trailer now. Slow, irregular. 3 hits. A pause. 2 more. Silence. 1. 4. Like someone trying to tap out a pattern and losing their place. "Hello," I called, my voice sounding too loud in all that open dark. "You hurt? Call out if you can hear me." No answer. Just another set of dull thuds against metal. I circled toward the front of the wreck, light scanning over the trailer's buckled skin. No emergency responders. No flare residue. No skid marks burned into the highway behind me. It was as if the rig had dropped from the sky and landed wrong. My beam touched the rear doors. They were still shut. No sign they'd been opened, no torn seal hanging loose, which meant the banging wasn't coming from the cargo bay. I swallowed and turned back toward the cab, pulse thudding a little too hard in my throat. "Where are you, man?" I muttered. "Come on. Yell." Nothing human answered, but right as I reached the driver's side, the CB in my truck hissed across the still night. I heard it clearly, even from outside, windows closed. "Thanks for stopping," the voice said. It was the same guy, same worn-out tone, same thin, stretched quality, like he was standing a long way from the mic in a room with no walls. I froze there between the 2 trucks, one hand on the crumpled door, the other still holding the flashlight. Goosebumps crawled up under my jacket. "He needed company," the voice added. I turned very slowly towards my own rig. The Kenworth sat 30 yards back, hazard lights blinking a steady orange heartbeat. Every window black. No movement inside. No silhouettes. The night felt suddenly crowded. I heard the words again, muffled this time, from my own cab speakers. "He needed company." The banging stopped. Silence fell heavy as a load. That was when the cab door on the wrecked semi slammed shut behind me. It didn't creak. It didn't scrape. It snapped closed with a clean, decisive wham that kicked dust into the air and made my flashlight jitter in my hand. There was no wind. I spun around, heart jammed into my throat. The driver's door that had been hanging partly open was now sealed tight against the frame. No hand had reached out. No body had moved. It had just closed. The cold was everywhere now. Under my collar, down my spine, in the backs of my knees. I backed away 1 step at a time, not turning my back on either truck until I was halfway to my Kenworth. The air between them felt thick, like walking through water. As I reached my own steps, the CB came alive one last time. "Won't stop banging," the voice whispered, almost gentle. I climbed in, locked the doors, and sat there gripping the wheel while my hazards ticked time away. The inside of my cab smelled like rubber mats and old coffee, but under it all, faintly, there was that metallic, cold air scent. I didn't call it in. That's the part I'm not proud of. Half of me told myself that wreck was old, that if no one had responded yet, it wasn't my place. The other half just wanted distance between me and whatever was calling through that radio. I eased back onto the highway, eyes flicking between the rear view and the darkness ahead. A few miles down, my CB crackled back to normal. Random chatter slid in. Some guy in Texas complaining about tolls, another bragging about his fuel mileage. No more calls about overturned rigs. Later, at a truck stop with bright lights and human noise, I asked around, careful-like, Couple of drivers from the area exchanged a look. One of them, a local, shrugged. "There was a bad one out there years back," he said. "Driver rolled it near midnight. No one saw him till sunup. They say he was awake the whole time, pinned in there, banging on the damn door while cars went by in the dark. CB was busted. By the time someone actually stopped, he let the sentence die. Folks talk like sometimes his calls still bounce around out there. I don't know if what I heard was him or something that learned his pattern and kept running it. All I know is, since that night, I don't treat dead air on the CB the same way. When the static gets too clean, too empty, I turn the volume down and focus on the road. And every time I pass Shiprock after midnight, if I see a twisted shape off the shoulder in the edge of my headlights, I keep driving. Because there are worse things out here than dying alone in a cab. One of them is finding out you didn't die alone. You just haven't realized who's keeping you company yet. I don't like talking about Route 666. Yeah, I know they changed the number on most of it. Call it 491 now in places, some boring state designation in others. But drivers know what I mean when I say 666. That long, dry vein of blacktop cutting through New Mexico and Arizona where your thoughts get too loud and the sky feels a little too big. Name's Mason. Been hauling freight for just over 20 years now, reefers, dry vans, flatbeds, you name it. That night, I was pulling a half-full drive in eastbound, headed from Flagstaff to a crossdock outside Farmington. Midnight run to beat the heat, delivery window wide enough that I wasn't pushing the clock for once. I was in my 15 Peterbilt, old but clean, gauges I trusted, CB duct taped in place like everyone else's. The kind of truck that rattles just enough to let you know it's working. Weather was clear, desert cool. No wind. Stars smudged out by my own headlights and a faint haze on the horizon. That stretch of 666 has sand that glows rust red when the beams hit it just right, like it soaked up every sunset and never let go. Some guys say at night it looks like it remembers old fires. I didn't put much stock in that then. I've been rolling steady for a few hours. Radio low, some late-night talk show crackling in from God knows where. The CB was mostly dead. An occasional eastbound, you got a bear at the 23 drifting in from miles away. But around me it was empty. No other rigs in sight. No passenger cars. Just mile markers ticking by and that endless ribbon of blacktop. Around 12:30 a.m., my knees started talking. Back to that dull, familiar ache that tells you you've been in the seat just a little too long. I saw the rest stop before I remembered it was there. One low concrete building. No lights inside. A couple of busted sodium lamps in the lot casting a weak orange haze over cracked pavement. The big blue sign had lost most of its lettering, but you could still make out rest area and the universal symbols for bathroom and picnic table. No other vehicles. Just my headlights sweeping through faded parking lines and weeds poking up through the asphalt. Normally, I don't pull into abandoned spots like that at night. Too many stories. Too much room for people with bad ideas. But my legs were tight, and I hadn't seen another set of lights in at least 30 minutes. The highway itself felt more dangerous than an empty lot. 2-minute stretch, I told myself, easing off onto the ramp. Doors locked, engine running. In and out. The Pete's headlights washed over the building, catching the graffiti-tagged walls and dusty glass. The sand around the lot was that strange, dark red, almost black where the shadows pooled. My tires crunched over gravel as I rolled into a space facing out toward the exit, like I always do. I set the brake, left the engine idling low. The dash lights glowed steady. Outside, the world was too quiet. No wind. No insects buzzing around the broken lamps. No distant hiss of passing cars on the highway 100 yards away. Just the low rumble under my feet and the ticking of cooling metal. I sat there a moment listening. "Stretch it and go," I muttered, more to fill the air than anything else. I flicked my dome light on for comfort, grabbed my hat, and popped the driver's door. The first thing that hit me was the temperature. It should have been cool desert air, crisp, dry. Instead, it felt like stepping into a room where the heater had been off all day and the cold had soaked into everything. Not bitter, not freezing, just still, heavy. The smell was strange too. Sand and dust, Sure, but under that something coppery and faint, like old blood on hot metal. Not strong, just enough to wrinkle your nose if you paid attention. I climbed down, boots hitting the cracked asphalt. The sound echoed more than it should have. The idling engine behind me sounded distant, like it belonged to another truck in another lot. The sand started right where the broken pavement ended. That rust-red stuff you only see in a few parts of the Southwest. In my headlights, it glowed like the embers of a fire someone walked away from years ago. I took a few steps, rolling my shoulders, working the knots out of my neck. I told myself I'd walk a slow loop around the rig, check the tires, call it a routine inspection so my nerves didn't feel so silly. I hadn't even made it to the back of the trailer when it happened. The sand in front of me moved. Not much, just a little puff, like something light had stepped there. A depression appeared, a perfect footprint. Bare human foot, heel and toes, pressed into that glowing red sand like it was soft mud instead of dry, cold dust. I stopped so hard my knee twinged. My first thought was animal. Some trick of the light, some coyote track I hadn't noticed. But the shape was too clear, too deliberate. You could see where the toes dug in, the slight curve of the arch. Before I could talk myself into anything else, another footprint appeared. Right next to it, a little closer to me. No sound, no visible cause. The sand simply collapsed inward in the exact shape of a human step. My mouth went dry. I watched because I couldn't do anything else as a third footprint formed. Then a fourth. Slow, measured, equal distance between them, like someone was walking toward me at a calm, steady pace. Except there was no one there. Nothing in the air. Nothing casting a shadow. Just red sand accepting invisible weight. I backed up until my shoulders bumped the side of the trailer. The footprints kept coming. They weren't random. They came straight for me in a clean line, each one crisp as if a sculptor was carving them. A few yards out, they stopped marching forward and started to curve. Left, then right, then left again. They began to circle me. I turned in place, pressing my spine into the cold metal of the trailer wall, watching the arc close around my boots. The sand gave way in perfect, soft-edged impressions, like someone was pacing around me, head down, studying me from a few inches above the ground. The air dropped another 10 degrees. My breath showed up in short, pale clouds. The smell of metal and dust thickened, sharper now, almost like the air inside a storage unit that's been sealed too long. I could hear my own heart over the engine. The circle tightened. The prints came closer, the arcs shrinking around me 6 feet away, for 2. The pattern was wrong for a nervous person. There was no hesitation, no stagger. Whoever, whatever, was making those steps knew exactly where they wanted to be. A fresh footprint sank into the sand a foot from my left boot. Another inches closer. Another at my right. They were so close now that if someone had actually been walking there, their knees would have brushed my legs. I couldn't see a body, couldn't hear breathing, but every instinct I had screamed that I wasn't alone. The last footprint appeared inches from my toes. The sand collapsed inward in a tight, deep shape. Someone's weight pushing hard, like they'd stopped and leaned forward. Something ice-cold clamped around my right wrist. I didn't see a hand. I didn't see anything. I just felt it. Fingers, individual and jointed, wrapping bone deep. The grip was precise. Thumb pressing into the soft meat below my palm, index and middle fingers locking over the tendons on the back of my hand. It wasn't the vague chill of air. It was skin contact. Solid. Undeniable. The cold shot up my arm like an electric current. My fingers spasmed open and shut on reflex. A slick, metallic taste flooded my mouth, as if I'd bit my tongue, though I hadn't. For half a second, I was too stunned to move. Whoever it was squeezed. Not hard enough to break anything. Just firm. Testing. Like they were deciding if I was real. I yanked. Adrenaline hit all at once. I jerked my arm back, wrenching it toward my chest with everything I had. The grip resisted for a fractional moment. A tug of war with something that had no visible form, then let go so suddenly I stumbled backward into the trailer. My shoulder slammed the metal. Pain flashed bright. I didn't wait to see what came next. I scrambled along the side of the rig, almost tripping over my own feet, boots sliding on the dusty pavement. The engine noise grew louder, realer. My truck, my stupid, rattling, human-made box of bolts, felt like the only safe place in a world that had just admitted it wasn't empty. I hit the steps, half climbed, half fell into the cab, and slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. My hands shook as I locked it, then checked the lock twice like that would mean anything against whatever had just touched me. For a few long seconds I just sat there, chest heaving, staring straight ahead. Then curiosity, mean and stubborn, made me look. In the yellow wash of my headlights, the sand around my truck was inked with footprints. They made a perfect circle where I'd been standing, dozens of them, each one clear and deep, tracking an invisible path around my body. You could follow the line where they'd approached me, tightened, stopped. They were steaming. Little tendrils of faint vapor curled up from each print, like breath on a cold mirror. The air outside wasn't warm enough to make heat hiss off sand. If anything, it should have been frost, not that. As I watched, more vapor seeped from the last footprint, the one closest to where my boots had been, like the ground itself was exhaling something it didn't want to hold. My wrist throbbed. I looked down. 5 pale marks were rising on the skin. No blood, no broken surface, just a pattern of white pressure blotches where something too cold had squeezed hard enough to change the way my body carried heat. I didn't get out to take pictures. I didn't call anyone. I put the Pete in gear, rolled out of that lot without bothering to look at the building again, and didn't drop below 60 until the rest stop was a memory in the mirrors. The rest of the run was uneventful. CB came back to life an hour later, guys talking weather, construction, cheap fuel. The air warmed up. The sand faded from red to brown in my mirrors as the sun thought about rising somewhere far behind me. I went back through there weeks later, in daylight, just to see if I'd lost my mind. The rest stop was the same: busted lights, tired concrete, graffiti. The sand was ordinary looking in the harsh sun. No footprints, of course. No circled patch, no sign anyone had been there in years. Just wind ripples across the surface like any other patch of desert. But every time I drive 666 at night now, I don't stretch my legs at the dead places. I keep the doors locked, the engine humming, the wheels turning. And whenever I catch that rust-red sand glowing in my headlights, just out of reach of the beam, I feel a cold phantom grip close around my wrist all over again, like something out there remembers the shape of my hand. My name's Avery Dunn. I've been driving rigs longer than some dispatchers have been alive. 27 years on the road, mostly Southwest hauls. You see strange things out here at night. Sure, mirages on hot pavement, dust devils that look like figures, the occasional drifter walking the shoulder. But what I saw on Highway 191 that night, no amount of experience prepares you for something impossible. It was about 1:15 in the morning. Moonless. Cold. I was hauling a half-loaded reefer down from Moab toward Gallup. Standard grocery contract. No rush. Delivery window anytime before dawn. My truck was a 2013 Kenworth T680. Reliable enough that I trusted every vibration, every hum. The CB was dead quiet. No chatter. Just a thin ribbon of static under the engine's steady growl. The desert around me looked like a giant sheet of black velvet, featureless except for the faint suggestion of mesas against the sky. I'd been driving 3 hours without stopping. That's when I saw the man. He appeared in my headlights like someone stepping out of a memory. Standing just off the shoulder, 1 foot on dirt, 1 on broken asphalt. Jeans, faded brown jacket, boot scuffs, duffel bag at his feet, his arm raised in a short, tired wave. Not frantic, not begging, just asking. I slowed instinctively. Old habit. My dad used to say, "There's a code on the road. Help when you can, because you never know when you'll need it back." I stuck to that mostly. I eased onto the shoulder, hazard lights ticking loud in the cab. The man didn't move until my truck stopped. Then he picked up the duffel, walked to the passenger side, and I heard a soft set of knocks, 3 taps, polite. I leaned over and popped the door. He climbed up without a word. Didn't grunt, didn't sigh, didn't thank me. just slid into the seat like he'd been sitting there forever and folded his hands on top of the duffel bag. "Evening," I said. Nothing. His eyes were fixed straight ahead at the windshield, unblinking, like he was watching something far off, something only he could see. I pulled back onto the road. For the first mile, I chalked it up to shock. Maybe his car had broken down. Maybe he'd been walking a long time. People get quiet when the desert gets into their bones. But the longer the silence stretched, the heavier it got. Not the usual awkward kind. This felt wrong. Like the air in the cab didn't want to carry sound anymore. The heater hummed gently. The engine droned. But between those two noises was nothing. A strange, absorbing quiet that pushed against my thoughts. After a few minutes, I tried again. "You headed south? I can get you to the 160 split." He didn't answer, didn't even blink. His stare stayed locked forward, steady and glass-like. Not quite vacant, not quite focused, just fixed. Finally, I looked over more boldly. That's when I noticed something that made my fingers grip the wheel harder. His clothes were clean, too clean. No dust on the jacket, no scuff marks on the bag. His boots didn't look like they'd walked a single step in desert dirt. But I'd seen him standing there. I'd watched him pick up that bag. I swallowed, throat suddenly dry. "Listen," I said carefully. "If there's someone you need me to call, police, tow family, I can do that for you." Nothing. He didn't breathe heavier, didn't twitch, didn't react at all. 10 minutes passed. The darkness outside thickened, swallowing the edges of the world. The road ahead looked like a strip of wet ink being rolled out in real time. The heater flickered. The CB hissed faintly, then went quiet again. I finally turned toward him fully. "Buddy, you okay?" The seat was empty. The duffel bag was gone. No door sound, no shifting of weight, no movement, just gone. As if the space had never been occupied at all. My body reacted before my brain did. I stomped the brake, hard enough that the trailer fishtailed, tires screeching on asphalt. I screamed. I don't remember doing it, but my throat hurt afterward, so I must have. I sat there shaking, hazards throwing sickly orange light across the highway. My chest hammered. My hands were ice. I checked the mirrors. Nothing behind me but empty road. I checked the sleeper. Empty. I checked the footwell. Empty. The air in the cab felt colder, thinner, like pressure dropping before a storm. After a long minute, I forced myself back onto the road. I didn't want to stay still. Didn't want the darkness to have time to settle around me. The GPS ticked forward, mile after mile. I rolled toward an upcoming bend, headlights sweeping across the empty shoulder, and my stomach fell straight through me. He was there. Same man. Same jeans, same jacket, same bag sitting by his boot. Standing exactly where I'd first seen him. Same posture, same tired waves slicing through my beams. Like the night had reset. My breath hitched hard. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I slowed not by choice, but because my foot wouldn't press the accelerator. It was like my body was split between two instincts. Run or understand. Something inside me picked understand. I coasted forward, heart trying to tear out of my ribs, and rolled to a stop 5 yards short of him. This time, I didn't open the door. I didn't move. He didn't either. He just stood there, waving gently, the motion slow and deliberate, like a metronome for someone else's heartbeat. My windshield fogged slightly from my breath. He stepped forward. One step, another, measured, calm. I locked my doors without thinking. He came right up to the passenger side window and lowered his hand. His face was visible now, but it wasn't right. Not damaged, not monstrous, just wrong, like it was being remembered instead of seen. Details soft around the edges, as if someone had tried to recreate a man from only half a memory. His lips didn't move, but something pressed into the cab anyway. An emotion more than a sound. "Let me in." My entire spine went cold. A chill so deep my toes curled inside my boots. I shook my head. "No," I breathed. "No, sir. Not tonight." The light from my dashboard flickered. Static crawled through the CB. The air thickened. like something was leaning into the truck from all sides at once. The man stared through the glass. Then, he vanished. Not stepped away. Not faded. Just snapped out of existence like a frame cut from film. I slammed the truck into gear and ripped away from that shoulder so fast my tires spat dust across the highway. I didn't look in the mirrors. Didn't breathe right for another 20 minutes. By the time I hit Gallup, my wrist hurt from gripping the wheel and my face felt stiff from clenching my jaw. I parked under the brightest lights I could find. Didn't sleep. Didn't blink too long. And here's the part that keeps me up even now. 2 days later, on my way back north, I passed that same stretch. In broad daylight this time. And there he was again. Same stance. Same wave. Same duffel bag. Waiting for a door I'm never opening. And every night since, when the cab gets too quiet, I swear I can feel someone sitting in my passenger seat. Breathless, weightless, watching the windshield like they're waiting for the road to loop again. Some rigs don't belong on the road. Most drivers mean that figuratively: bad brakes, bald tires, rookie behind the wheel. But every long hauler knows there are nights when something else shares the highway with you. Something that isn't about freight or payroll or DOT regulations. Something that's just there. My name's Rowan Hale. 22 years driving long haul, mostly Southwest and mountain states. I know the shape of every desert at night, the hum of every kind of pavement, the difference between a crosswind and a bad alignment. This wasn't any of those things. It was close to 2 a.m., somewhere along US 491, that long, lonely stretch between Shiprock and Monticello. I was hauling a light load of dry goods in a 2018 Volvo VNL. Smooth ride, quiet cab, enough technology to make you almost forget you're alone with a million miles of dark. Weather was cold clear, stars muted behind thin cloud bands. I had the CB on low volume, mostly static, occasional chatter from rigs far off. Desert nights feel wider than day. The darkness flattens everything until the road ahead looks like it floats in space. I'd been rolling steady around 65 for about an hour when I noticed the headlights. 300 yards back. Dead white beams. Steady, too bright, too level. At first I thought it was a company rig catching up. I stayed in the right lane. Standard courtesy. But the headlights never closed. Every mile I drove, they stayed the same distance behind me. Just sitting there, matching me perfectly, almost like I was towing them. A little knot formed in my stomach, but I told myself what truckers always tell themselves. Maybe they're pacing, maybe they're waiting for a hill, maybe they're just nervous about passing in the dark. I've done it myself, but after 15 straight minutes of that perfect spacing, I started to really look. Sure enough, something was off. The headlights weren't bouncing. Headlights always bounce on uneven highway. Little dips of light, small vibrations, a sliver of motion from the driver adjusting. These beams were smooth as a laser fixed to a rail. No wobble, no shift, no personality, just locked onto me. I watched them in my mirror until my eyes burned. Then, with an uneasy exhale, I told myself to let it be. I'd seen plenty of weird driving. But then they got closer. Not gradually, like someone easing up on the throttle. No, these headlights grew larger the way a shadow does when someone walks toward you. One moment they were 300 yards out. The next they were right beside me. A matte black tractor. No plates. No DOT numbers. No company logo. No reflective strips on the flatbed it towed. Just an empty, bare metal skeleton behind it. It moved up alongside me so silently that I didn't hear engine pitch change. No turbo whistle. No rumble of a Cat or Cummins. Nothing. Just a soundless presence filling the lane beside me. My throat tightened. I glanced left. I wish I hadn't. The semi was wrong. Too smooth. Too dark. Like someone had dipped the whole thing in charcoal paint that swallowed light. My headlights didn't reflect off its side. The moonlight didn't catch it either. Its windows, driver's side, passenger side, were entirely black. Not tinted. Not dirty. Black like a hole. Like a square cut out of the world. Okay? I muttered, forcing my hand steady on the wheel. Just a custom job. Someone with money to waste and no sense of safety. But the way it moved, if I sped up, it sped up. If I slowed down, it slowed down. A perfect mirror of my speed down to the decimal. Mile after mile, we glided side by side through the desert silence. Two rigs locked into a formation I hadn't agreed to. My CB hissed once. Then it spat a whisper so faint I almost missed it. "Rowan!" I froze. I hadn't said my name on CB all night. The whisper drifted through static like breath pushed through teeth. "Don't look!" I almost choked because I already had been. And that's when the black semi's headlights went out. All of them. One blink, and the desert swallowed the rig beside me. There were no running lights, no marker lights, nothing. Just pitch-black emptiness to my left. But I could still feel it. The pressure. Like a massive body pacing me in the dark. Its weight bending silence around it. The size of it filled the space between my truck and whatever waited in the endless desert beyond the shoulder. My fingers dug into the wheel hard enough to make my knuckles ache. My breath came thin, shallow. I resisted looking, but eventually human instinct beat out reason. When a cloud drifted and the moon cut a pale sliver across the road, I turned my head, just enough to glimpse the shape beside me. What I saw didn't make sense. The rig was still there, but the windows, those pitch-black squares, were alive. Not moving, not breathing, but aware. Something behind that blackness was pressed close to the glass. Its intention so heavy I could feel it brushing against my chest from across the cab. Watching me, judging me, reflecting me back like prey. A pulse of cold slid across my ribs, a sensation deep as bone. My chest tightened so violently I thought I was having a heart attack. The voice on the CB returned. "Don't match its speed." I jerked forward, pressing the accelerator. For a second, the road warped in my headlights like heat waves, except it was cold. I could smell metal and ozone, like rain over power lines. The black rig kept pace, effortless, fluid, wrong. Then, at the next long bend, a slow right curve that carved along a shallow ravine, the thing beside me vanished. No deceleration, no drift, no fallback, gone. Like someone had hit a switch and cut it from reality. My truck lurched slightly as if freed from a magnetic pull. My chest loosened, but only just. Something lingered, pressure, or expectation or attention. I couldn't name it, but it sat heavy on me, even with the road empty again. I drove another 10 miles with my hazards on, checking every mirror every 10 seconds like a rookie on his first solo haul. Nothing came back. No lights on the horizon. No shadows in the shoulder. No whisper on the CB. Finally, at a little turnout used mostly by ranchers and the occasional trooper, I pulled over. Engine idling. Hands shaking. The cab smelled faintly of burnt rubber and cold metal, though I hadn't braked that hard. I stepped out into the open air, expecting relief. Instead, the pressure on my chest tightened again, like a hand closing. Not hurting, just reminding. In the moonlit silence, I realized something important. Whatever had been in that truck, it wasn't gone. Just somewhere I couldn't see. Somewhere waiting. Since that night, every time I drive a dark highway and another rig paces me too perfectly, I feel the same weight settle on my chest. Heavy, expectant, familiar. And every time my lights flicker or the CB goes too quiet, my eyes drift to the left window without meaning to. Because I know that somewhere out there on the desert roads, a matte black tractor with no plates and windows like bottomless pits is still running. Not hauling freight, not following routes, just watching. And sooner or later, it'll line up beside my cab again. Perfect speed, perfect silence, perfect darkness. If you run freight through New Mexico long enough, the highway starts feeling like a habit you don't remember picking up. Same night skies, same desert silence, same faint glow of Gallup far out on the horizon like a tired lantern someone forgot to blow out. My name's Derek, 25 years long haul, all lower 48. I'm no stranger to weird things on the road. Mirages bending heat, coyotes crossing at the worst possible moment, hitchhikers who look like ghosts even when they're flesh and bone. But none of it compares to what I saw near that old mining road outside Gallup. I was hauling a full load, auto parts, strapped tight in a dry van, heading west toward Flagstaff. It was 3:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I just tapped the clock on the dash, thinking about whether I should stop for coffee at the next pilot or power through the night. My truck, a 2016 Freightliner Cascadia, hummed steady under me. A faint vibration through the steering wheel, that constant whisper of rubber against asphalt. CB was on volume low, barely more than a hiss and the occasional distant voice breaking in, too far to make out words. The desert around me was still. No wind, no traffic ahead, no traffic behind. Just endless black highway and muted stars. Right past the turnoff to an old mining road, one of those gravel paths locals say leads nowhere, I saw movement. Small, quick, strange. I leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. Kids. I swear kids. 4 of them, maybe 5. Standing in the middle of the highway. My headlights caught little silhouettes, thin arms, thin legs. They were jumping, turning, hopping in place. At first my mind tried to make it something normal. Maybe goats, maybe stray dogs bouncing around. But no. When I flipped on my brights, the beams washed over them. Children, clear as anything, playing hopscotch, on the asphalt, at 3:47 in the morning. Not one of them looked up. Not one flinched at the sudden light blasting into their faces. They didn't scatter or freeze like normal kids would. They just kept playing. Little hands swinging, feet tapping the ground, heads bobbing. And the sound. I didn't hear voices, not speaking ones, but I caught a soft rhythm through the cab glass. The light thump of feet hitting pavement. The faint scrape of something against the ground. Chalk. My throttle foot left the pedal on instinct. The truck slowed in a long, uneasy glide. What in God's name? I whispered. As I rolled closer, I saw the chalk lines clearly. Hopscotch squares scrawled right onto the highway. Long, looping patterns. Simple boxes at first, but then twisting shapes I didn't recognize. Swirls, arcs, symbols that didn't belong in any playground game. The chalk glowed. Not bright, just a faint, pulsing blue, like the marks were breathing under the children's feet. Each time they jumped, the glow flared softly. My heart thudded hard enough to feel in my teeth. I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't tired enough for that. I'd slept 10 hours at the previous stop. This was real. Too real. They were right in my lane, so I jerked the wheel hard right, tires screaming as I pulled onto the shoulder. The trailer swung slightly, stabilizing with a groan. I came to a full stop, hands shaking. My brights still painted the highway. The kids kept playing. Their movements were too smooth, too steady. No child runs hopscotch with perfect, metronome timing. But these did. Their jumps had the same cadence, same height, same landing. Like a loop playing out. I cracked the window. Cold desert air crawled inside the cab. Cold like metal. Cold like the inside of a freezer. I listened. The jump thumps were gone. Instead, I heard something underneath the truck. A sound like distant giggling, soft, echoing, muffled. My stomach dropped. I turned back toward the road, and the kids were gone. Every last one. The hopscotch chalk was gone too. Not smeared. Not washed out. Completely absent. Like the asphalt had never been touched. The highway was empty. Just black pavement and my brights stretching into nothing. But the sound, the laughter didn't stop. It grew clearer, threading up through the ground. Like something was underneath the asphalt. Deep beneath the road. Laughing in faint, overlapping voices. Children's voices. I slammed the window shut on instinct. Put the truck in drive. My hands shook so badly it took 2 tries to release the brake. As the tires rolled off the shoulder and back onto the road, a vibration ran through the wheel. A soft bump. Then another. Like something under the pavement had pressed upward as I passed over it. I sped up. 60. 70. The laughter followed, muffled but constant. The pavement hum deepened, vibrating through the floor plates. My rearview mirror showed nothing. No silhouettes. No movement. No glowing chalk. But my chest felt tight. Heavy. Like little hands were pressing against my ribs from the inside. I drove another mile before the laughter stopped. It didn't fade. It just cut off. Gone. Like someone snapped a switch. The desert returned to its dead silence. The CB crackled randomly, just static. The sky remained just as empty, the road just as dark. I told myself I'd imagined it. Chalk tricks, shadow tricks, exhaustion, brain-filling gaps. But as I passed the next mile marker, something made me glance at the mirror again. My own headlights reflected off the asphalt behind me, and for half a second, I saw them. 5 kids, standing shoulder to shoulder, facing my truck, not playing, not moving, just watching me drive away. And all 5 silhouettes raised their arms in the same slow, identical wave. My stomach flipped. I jerked my eyes forward, breath hitching so sharply it hurt. When I checked again, they were gone. Just darkness, just road. But a whisper rose from my floorboards. Faint, fragile, like someone speaking through layers of dirt. Come back. I pressed the pedal to the floor. Didn't stop till Winslow. Didn't sleep till the sun was up and the world felt safe again. But here's the thing that's kept me from forgetting that night. 3 weeks later, on the same highway, a new strip of asphalt was being laid down. Roadwork. Fresh blacktop. I passed it during the day. The crew had torn up the old surface. And underneath, deep beneath where the top layer used to be, I saw something in the scraped, raw earth. Lines. Hopscotch lines. A faint, pale blue. Too deep for chalk. Too sharp to be natural. Lines engraved into the ground itself, like something under the surface had drawn them long before the highway ever existed. And that night, while rolling past the same spot, my CB hissed once, clear as day. They're still playing. I don't take that route after midnight anymore. And every time I hear kids laughing in a grocery store or a park or a parking lot, a cold feeling climbs up my spine, like the sound is coming from underneath me, not around me. Most runs blur together after 20 years on the road. Mile markers, fuel stops, bad coffee. But there are nights you don't forget, no matter how badly you want to. My name's Logan. I've driven everything. Reefers, flatbeds, tankers, even a few military escort hauls. I know New Mexico highways better than my own backyard. Or at least I thought I did. That night proved me wrong. I was hauling a drive-in southbound toward Las Cruces. Light load of medical supplies, clean paperwork. It was 4:22 a.m. desert air cold enough to bite through the cab. Stars faint behind a high layer of haze. CB mostly quiet except for the occasional scratch of distant chatter. I was running my 2011 Peterbilt 579. A truck old enough to complain but dependable enough to trust. The comforting rumble of the engine kept me awake through the monotony of night. The highway was empty, just reflective posts rushing past like silent metronomes. And that's when I saw it. A way station. Lit. Open. Except that stretch of 70 didn't have a way station. Not for at least another 40 miles. But the sign was unmistakable. Way station open. All trucks must enter in flickering pink neon that looked like it belonged in the 1950s. I frowned, sat up straighter. Neon? Way stations don't use neon. Not in any state. Ever. But the gate was open. The overhead lights were on. And I sure as hell didn't want to risk a bypass violation if somehow I was misremembering the map. So I signaled and pulled in. The ramp was uneven, cracked, long stretches patched with ancient tar. My headlights washed over a building half sunk into the dirt, like erosion had been nibbling at it for decades. One side sagged noticeably, windows dusty, but the open sign glowed bright, humming faintly. I rolled onto the scale. The display flickered, numbers jittered, then steadied at a believable weight. So far, so normal. The intercom crackled above me, though I hadn't seen a camera or sensor. Driver, bring your logbook inside. The voice was muffled, flat, like someone talking through a long, hollow pipe. I hesitated. Something about the tone made my skin crawl. Calm, emotionless, too slow. But protocol was protocol. I set my brake, grabbed my logbooks, and climbed out. Cold air slapped me in the face. The smell of sand, dust, and something metallic drifted across the lot. Inside, the building was lit by buzzing fluorescents, some flickering like old ghosts trying to breathe. A single attendant sat behind thick glass. Old uniform, old desk, old paperwork. Everything about him looked faded, like he'd been sitting there since before trucking logs went digital. He didn't look up when I walked in, just stared down at a yellowing stack of forms like he was trying to remember what ink looked like. Cleared my throat. Morning. No reaction. I slid my logbook under the glass partition through a metal tray. Still nothing. I frowned. You want my BOL too? The man slowly looked up. His movements were stiff, too stiff, like muscles that hadn't been used in a long time. His eyes were dark, not in color but in expression. Something hollow sitting behind them. He finally spoke. You shouldn't be on this road tonight. His voice was quieter in person, like the air had to strain to carry it. I blinked. Why's that? His mouth twitched. Not a smile, not a frown, just a twitch like he was trying to remember how expressions worked. You shouldn't be here. My heartbeat picked up. What do you mean here? I'm en route. This station's open. The sign. I turned toward the window for half a second. When I looked back, he was gone. Chair empty. No movement. No door sound. No footsteps. Just gone. The overhead lights flickered once. Hard. And the entire room plunged into darkness. My breath froze in my chest. For a moment, all I could hear was the faint hum of my idling truck outside. I swallowed hard and reached for the door. The handle felt ice cold. My fingers stuck for a second like the metal had frost on it. When I pushed outside, the chill desert air hit me like a wall. The building stood completely dark. No neon sign, no fluorescence, no hum, no glow. Just a dead, collapsed-looking structure with boarded-up windows and a broken awning hanging crooked off the roof. It hadn't been open for decades. My logbook was in my hand, exactly where I'd started. I turned in a slow circle, breath puffing in the cold air. The scale lights were off too. The entire way station looked like a ghost of itself. Abandoned, forgotten, decaying. But my tire tracks were fresh in the dirt. I had driven in here. I had walked inside. I had spoken to someone. A deep vibration rolled under my feet. Faint, rhythmic, like footsteps beneath concrete. I backed toward my truck. Something about the air felt wrong. Too still, too heavy, like the atmosphere inside the station had leaked out into the open. I reached the cab, grabbed the handle, and the intercom crackled behind me. Loud, clear. A voice coming through the dead speakers. Driver, return inside for inspection. My throat tightened. I didn't turn around. The intercom hissed again. Driver, return. Inside. I yanked open my door and scrambled up. The moment I slammed it shut, my cab lights flickered violently. My CB, which had been silent all night, erupted in static sharp enough to rattle the speakers. In the static, a voice threaded through, broken, desperate, overlapping itself like echoes fighting for space. Don't go inside again. My chest constricted. Who is this? I whispered. Static swallowed the voice. I put the truck in gear and rolled out of that station so fast I could feel gravel hitting the undercarriage. When my wheels finally hit smooth asphalt again, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like minutes. In the mirror, the way station was dark, lifeless, and yet, as I accelerated, I saw the neon open sign flicker back on for just 1 second. A single pale pink blink. Then nothing. Just desert. Just night. Just the sense, deep, cold, undeniable, that something inside that dead building had watched me leave, and didn't like it. To this day, I avoid that stretch before dawn. Because sometimes, when the CB goes quiet, when the desert air turns cold enough to sting, when the highway feels too empty, I hear a faint voice in the static whisper, "You shouldn't be on this road tonight." I haul refrigerated mostly, produce out of California up through Utah, sometimes swing east if the money's right. That run, I was dragging a half-full reefer 53 foot, behind an old but loyal Peterbilt 379. Nothing fancy. Dash rattles over 65. Sea smells like dust and cheap pine. CB duct taped from the last time it fell off the mount. She ain't pretty, but she climbs. It was a little after 2 a.m., the hour when the world feels thin. I just crossed into that dead stretch outside Monument Valley. Locals call it different things: Devil's Highway, Old 666, the no-help zone, but on the GPS it's just a beige line through nothing. Sky was moon-washed and colorless, the kind of pale that makes everything look like an old photograph. No wind, no other headlights. The asphalt ahead of me was bone-dry, cracked like sunburnt skin. I remember checking the clock on my dash. 2:07 a.m. I had 12 more hours to make it to a distribution center outside Albuquerque. Reefer temp steady at 34. Radio low, some late-night host mumbling about solar flares. Coffee gone lukewarm. That hum under your hands on the wheel when the truck and road finally sink into one long vibration. That's where I was. That strange, hypnotic peace truckers don't admit they like. Then my left ear went cold. Not the normal AC draft. This was sharp, like someone pressed a metal spoon right behind my jawbone. The hairs on that side of my neck lifted. I rolled my shoulder, flexed my fingers on the wheel. Old bones, I muttered to myself. You're getting jumpy, Cole. Road sign slipped by on the right. Speed limit 65. Below it, in bullet holes and faded spray paint, somebody had written, "No stopping and no hitchhikers." I'd seen those signs before. Never meant much. A few minutes later, coming out of a lazy right-hand curve, I saw her. At first she was just movement, a smudge in the slow lane where there should have been nothing. My headlights picked her up clean as day as I rolled closer. Barefoot woman, long dark hair matted to her face and shoulders, wearing a plain white dress that hit her midcalf. The dress didn't move right. It flickered in my beams like a bad film frame skipping. She was walking the slow lane, not the shoulder. The lane. No bag. No phone. No car pulled over. Just walking. Instinct kicked in. I eased off the throttle, hand hovering over the air horn, eyes scanning the shoulder for a wreck, a flipped sedan. Something that said this makes sense. Nothing. The road behind her was empty. The desert on both sides was a flat, silver sheet. No glow of other cars, no porch lights, no ranch, nothing. "Lady?" I breathed. "What the hell are you doing out here?" I flashed my brights twice. She didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't look. I dropped another 5 miles an hour, edged over into the passing lane to give her as much space as I could. I've seen drunk walkers, runaways, tweakers stumbling along the shoulder. They all move like they're reacting to something: wind, pain, their own thoughts. She moved like someone had programmed her, heel, toe, heel, toe. As I went by, my headlights washed over her face. That's the first time my skin turned to ice. Her hair stuck across her cheeks and mouth, but I could see enough. Her skin had that washed-out tone, like she'd been under hospital lights too long. Her eyes were down, fixed on some invisible spot in the lane. Her arms hung straight at her sides, fingers loose, nails pale. I passed her and my guts clenched. Every hair from my arms to my neck stood up so fast it hurt. I checked my driver's side mirror. She wasn't walking anymore. She was standing perfectly still in the middle of the slow lane, like time had stopped around her. Same white dress, same hair, but frozen. Her bare feet were planted perfectly in the center of that faded line. And then she turned her head, not like you or I would, not a normal look over the shoulder. Her head rotated slow, mechanical, chin dragging across her collarbone. Her eyes slid up toward my mirror, like she knew exactly where I'd be looking. And then her neck kept going. Another inch. Another. The angle went past normal, past safe, past anything you'd see outside of a car wreck. The human spine doesn't bend like that. I didn't think. I floored it. The Pete roared, turbo whistling, and the reefer lurched like it had just woken up from a nap. The road stretched ahead, a straight black tongue under the moon. I watched the speedo climb. 60, 65, 70. The cold in my left ear spread down my jaw, into my chest, like someone had cracked a window only on that side. I reached up to tap the CB mouth dry. Breaker, breaker. Anybody eastbound on 666? You catch a pedestrian in the slow lane back there? Nothing. Just static. Then, faintly, like it had been recorded too low and stretched out, a whisper slid through the noise. "Slow lane." I froze. The tip of my tongue went numb. "Say again," I asked. The radio hissed, crackled, then went dead silent. Not even carrier noise, like someone had pulled the cord from the wall. I glanced at the unit. The backlight was still on, channel still on 19. But the green signal light that always flickered, always was dark. I drove another quarter-mile, eyes ping-ponging between the windshield, the CB, and the road ahead. My heartbeat had moved into my throat, hitting every gap in the pavement. Then my dash cam chimed. Just a soft beep. Normal. It does that whenever it flags a motion or event. But the timing made my stomach drop. I flicked my eyes to the dash screen. It was running. Red dot, elapsed time. Everything normal. I looked back at the road, and there she was again. Slow lane. Same spot relative to my cab. Same white dress. Same dripping hair. Same downcast eyes. For a second my brain tried to make math out of it. Maybe I looped? Maybe there's a rest stop I passed? Maybe... No, I hadn't taken an exit. I hadn't even changed lanes back yet. I was still in the passing lane, still accelerating. I felt it then, the vibration through the wheel fading, like the asphalt wasn't quite contacting the tires right. Like the truck and the road had slipped out of sync. The steering went just a little too light, like I was gliding over water instead of rubber on stone. I slowed again, against every survival instinct screaming at me to punch it. As I drew level with her, the air in the cab changed. The smell of diesel, old coffee, and dusty vents drowned under something metallic and sharp, like cold iron and ozone before a lightning strike. The temperature dropped enough that my breath fogged faintly right in front of my nose. My hands ached. I realized I was white-knuckling the wheel so hard my fingers had gone numb. I didn't look at her this time. I kept my eyes locked straight ahead, focused on the broken reflectors in the middle of the road. Peripheral vision still caught the blur of white as she passed through my headlights and slid down the length of the trailer. Mirror. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself just drive, Cole. Just go. But you can't not look. That's how we're wired. She was standing again. Same place. Same impossible stillness. Her head already turned. Neck bent too far. Eyes locked on my mirror like she'd been waiting for me to check. This time, her mouth moved. It didn't open right. The jaw unhinged just a little too wide, like someone was forcing it from the inside. I couldn't hear anything. No scream, no words, but I didn't need to. My body understood whatever she was saying before my mind did. Every old fear I'd ever buried on the road crawled up my spine. The empty-way stations, the memorial crosses, the stories about drivers who went missing between mile markers. I slammed my eyes forward and stomped the accelerator again. The cold rode with me. For miles. The sky didn't change. No new stars. No distant town glow. The GPS time ticked forward, but the mileage to my next waypoint stayed the same. 23 miles. 23 miles. 23 miles. I drove through that number for what felt like an hour. The CB flickered alive once. Just once. A voice, low and washed out, slid in under the static. It sounded like a woman pressed against glass, words smeared. Don't stop. The slow lane. Then it cut. Who is this? I rasped. My own voice didn't sound right in the cab. Too loud. Wrong pitch. Nothing answered. Finally, like a film jump cutting to the next scene, the world snapped back. The hum under the wheels returned, strong and steady. The steering tightened up. The GPS mileage rolled down like normal. 22 mi, 21 mi, 20 mi. Up ahead, on the right, a reflective green sign rose out of the dark. Rest area, 1 mile. I almost cried. I pulled in too fast, brakes hissing, trailer sway pushing dust off the shoulder. The rest area was dead. One busted street lamp buzzing. Concrete bathrooms that looked like they'd been shut since the 80s. Vending machines out of order in red tape. I parked under the dying light anyway. Killed the engine. The sudden silence pressed against my eardrums. For a long time I just sat there, fingers still curled around a wheel that wasn't vibrating anymore. Eventually, I grabbed the dash cam, thumbed through the last recorded blocks. I don't know what I expected. Proof, maybe. Something I could show a cop, a priest, a shrink. The footage from that stretch is still on a thumb drive in my glove box. It's crystal clear Highway 666. Centerline, shoulder, my headlights cutting through the desert. You can see every crack in the asphalt. But whenever my truck passes the spot where she was, the image ripples. It's not digital artifacting. I've seen that before. This is different. The frame bends, like the road is seen through heat waves, and there's a faint vertical smear in the slow lane. A pale disturbance about the size and shape of a person. And every time my truck gets level with that smear, the audio drops. Dead. Silence, like the universe muted itself. I tried enhancing it on my laptop once. Paused it, zoomed in. Bad idea. Because under the smear, under the distortion, the pixels almost line up into a face. Not detailed, just suggestions. A shadow of eyes. A hint of a mouth stretched a little too wide. And if you stare at it long enough, the distortion seems to notice. Last time I played that clip, the laptop speakers whispered back the same thing I heard on the CB. Don't stop. I've talked to other drivers about that stretch since. Most just laugh it off, call it night jitters or reefer dreams. But a few go quiet. Their eyes drift, like they're watching something in their own mirrors. One guy told me his GPS lost an entire hour between 2-mile markers out there. Another swore his rig passed the same roadside memorial cross 3 times, even though he never turned. All I know is this: I don't take 666 at night anymore. I'll add 6 hours to my route, burn extra fuel, sleep in some sketchy truck stop with flickering lights and screaming kids before I roll that dead stretch under a full moon again. And if I have to, if there's absolutely no way around it, you won't catch me in the slow lane. Not for anything. Not for anyone. Because that road doesn't feel empty anymore. Not since I saw her. And every time the CB goes quiet a little too long, I still feel that sharp cold behind my left ear. Like someone's matching my speed in the dark, barefoot, step for step, just waiting for me to look in the mirror.